Hey everybody, it's Rain. Today I'm going to take you along with me as I chain ply this gorgeous merino bamboo blend that is actually hand blended. So the first thing I'm going to do is load it onto my lazy Kate. I'm going to put my yarn between my pointer finger and my middle finger like so and wrap it towards me twice around my pointer finger. Take your first loop and pull it over, making an X, and then take your second loop and pull it on over and off of your finger, and you will have a slip knot. Then I'm going to take the tail and pull it through my leader and just kind of hold it with one of the sides of the loop. You want to take the working yarn, I'm going to call it my working yarn that is coming from my bobbin. I went ahead and turned my spinner on and take my working yarn from the bobbin and pull it through that loop, making another loop. And then we want to just pretty much keep doing that over and over. So you take your working yarn, pull it through the loop, and then you let all three of the singles ply together. So as you can see, if you don't get it right, it'll kind of start twisting all over the place onto itself. And I did have to stop and start quite a few times and untwist it, but I got the hang of it relatively quickly. And I definitely was starting out at too high of a speed. I usually run my spinner at around 1 o'clock, just past 12 o'clock, if you think of the dial as a clock. So that was a little bit too fast. I should have had it right around 12. But hey, that's how we learn. This is my first real chain ply. The only other time I've ever attempted to chain ply was when I only had the little nano spinning wheel, and it just didn't work for me. I don't know if other people might be able to chain ply on the little nano. The eel wheel nano is what I'm referring to by Dreaming Robots. But I wasn't able to get it to work, even with a very fine yarn. It was just, there's just not enough uptake. And that's another thing I found with chain plying is I did have to up my tension a little bit more than I'm normally used to keep it at a nice even pace and not let it get over twisted. So considering this is my first real attempt at chain plying, one of the things I had to learn very quickly was that you definitely want to keep a firm grip on whichever fingers you're using to hold the point of twist, which is where you don't want to let the twist travel back into the plies further. So my left hand is what I'm using to hold my point and twist here, and as you can see, I'm keeping a firm grip so that none of that twist starts going back at a time that I do not want it to. I want to make sure that I grab that loop and I've got that working yarn up there in the right place before I let the twist come back into the yarn. So just make sure to keep a firm grip on that point of twist. And also, you're taking a single and turning it into a 3-ply. So it's quite thick, and as you can see, I did not move my yarn guide over in time, and I ended up with a big lump. So I had to go back and pull it out and fix that up. So make sure you keep a close watch on your yarn guides. And the way that I did it, when I needed to stop, I would hook my loop that I was holding onto something like the little orifice reducer knob that sticks out on the Ashford E-Spinner 3. I used that, or I hooked it around my lazy Kate. And anytime you see me rubbing the yarn like that, I'm just trying to equalize the twist in it a little bit. I find that when you rub it like that, sometimes you can get, if it's a little bit of extra twist, you can get it to kind of even out. So I moved the camera so you could see a better angle of how much room I'm using. I'm using quite a bit of room to be able to pull that yarn through. And I also stopped. As you can see, I've got my wheel stopped right here, and I stopped and started as many times as I needed to make sure that it was just the way I wanted. Do not feel bad if you have to stop and start a bunch of times to get it the way you want it, because plying is it. After that, there's really not much you can do after plying to really get it the way you want it. If you got a bumper, a nub that you want to go ahead and get rid of, go ahead and stop your wheel and get rid of it. I stopped and started quite a few times just to make sure that the twist was the way I wanted it and it wasn't over twisted. And there was no bumps or nubs where the chains kind of overlap in the yarn. So chain plying is also called Navajo plying. That might be what you're more familiar with hearing it. Chain plying, Navajo plying, they're both the same thing. We are taking a single and we're plying it with itself to make a 3-ply using a crochet chain. If you've ever made crochet chains or daisy chains, you're just making a huge one of those over and over and adding twist to it as you go so that it makes it a 3-plied yarn. And this is an absolutely wonderful technique to use if you got a really thin, really beautiful, lacy weight single and you want to keep the colors, like if you've got a hand-dyed braid of fiber and you want to keep the colors from getting barber poled or muddied up, you can use this technique and it'll keep the barber poling and the muddying and mixing of the colors that you sometimes get when you spin those gorgeous hand-dyed braids like I have in my Etsy shop. You can keep that to a minimum and kind of keep the colors standing out on their own a little bit more by using chain plying. So another tip I want to mention is to keep your bobbin lightly tensioned on your Lazy Kate. Just a little bit of light tension to keep it from gaining momentum and like jerking the yarn off on its own, if you know what I mean, and wrapping it all over the bobbin. Because if it gains enough momentum and inertia, it's going to just start flying back onto the bobbin. So just try to keep your bobbin from doing that and just have a light amount of tension, because when you go to pull, you pull that loop out, so you pull that loop back, and then you also want to pull even more out from the bobbin to be able to ply it with itself. So you're constantly pulling from that bobbin. And another thing, definitely don't pull too hard with just 1 or 2 fingers, because I got a little bit of burn from doing this. Just a little bit though. It wasn't too bad, but I did burn myself twice when I was pulling out that loop just because I was going too fast. So if you're finding that you're doing that, slow your wheel down a little bit and it should help it a lot. So for the rest of this video, I tried to get a more close-up angle of how I'm pulling the yarn through the loop. So you just have your loop, and I would say about a good 8 to 12 inches of loop left, I go ahead and pull the single through and make a new loop. And then sometimes I did it a little bit sooner with only about 5 or 6 inches left. I would just say to practice some, get some singles that you don't particularly like or that you don't really know what to do with, and just give it a try chain plying them. That's really the best way that I learn, is just to jump right in and give it a go. And a lot of times I find that it is not that hard. I was a little nervous about doing this because the last time I tried it on my Nano was a disaster, and I just pretty much had to lay that single aside and spin some more and do a traditional 3-ply with 3 bobbins plying together. But this one was quite easy. It came to me pretty easily, and I would say about 1/3 of the way through I got a really good technique down and I was able to do it nice and smoothly. And I wasn't stopping and starting as much as I was in the beginning. So I just want to give you the process that I used to make this fiber and this yarn. First, I took 19.5 micron merino wool top. It was already processed comb top. And I took bamboo, and I did some little samples and some blends, and I found that around a 70% merino and a 30% bamboo was a wonderful combination. So I combed, first of all, I weighed out the correct amount of fibers to get that percentage. Then I combed them on some Valkyrie extra fine combs. Then I took all that combing, it was about 5 or 6 little braids, little mini braids, and I put that on my hackle, and I dizzed it all off, and then I dyed it and washed it and hung it up to dry. Then after that, we spun it and let it rest on the bobbin for a day, and then here we are plying it today. And that is the process of this skein of yarn right here. And if you would like to purchase this skein, I'm going to list it in my Etsy shop. It's going to be on Rain Fiber Arts Etsy. There is a link in the description of almost all of my YouTube videos for a nice reasonable price. It's not very much. I think there's only around 55 or 56 yards in this skein, but it is a beautiful, bouncy, soft yarn, and I absolutely love it. I just don't know what to do with it, and I know some of you weavers out there might want to use it, so I'm going to list it on there. If you would like this exact skein, you can check my Etsy and see if it's still available. And as you can see, I got to going a little too fast here, and actually ended up plying some of the leader thread right here. I pulled it all the way through. I made too big of a loop and pulled my leader thread all the way through. So I had to go back and pull my leader out and make a smaller loop to get it finished off. But it was pretty easy to fix. That's another thing with chain plying. At least I found that the fixes are pretty easy, even with 2 plies and 3 plies, the same as well. I guess it's a little harder than a 2 ply. It really wasn't too bad at all. So I finished it up here, and here's what we're left with. And I just kind of fiddled with that end a little bit, gave it a little twist here, a little twist there, and pulled off that excess, and it was beautiful in the end. So the way I finish off my bobbins is just hand wind it on like so, and tuck it under one of the threads beside of it, and then just take it off and let it rest. Usually I'll let it rest a couple hours to a day before I wash it and set it. But here is our finished bobbin. Nice little bobbin shot. It's amazing how much it boofs up and poofs up after you thwack it and set it. But I absolutely love the shine and the soft texture of this. I've never worked with bamboo, so this was also a first on bamboo as well. But it was quite nice. I enjoyed it. So here is the finished skein after washing it, thwacking it, and setting the twist, and then hanging it up to dry. This is it all dried up. If you'd like to get this, the link's in the description. Be sure to follow me while you're down there on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I will see y'all next week. I love y'all. Bye-bye.